All right, real quick today, let's talk about the effective use of the legs and potentially the pounds that you are leaving on the table, on the bench, off the bar specifically, if you are not using your legs effectively. Real quick, specifically, what we're going to cover is number one, 2 factors that you want to consider when using your legs during the bench press. Number two, 2 equipment issues that can hinder your ability to use your legs effectively. And then number 3, how are we going to mitigate those issues? Number one, what factors do we want to consider when we're using our legs in the bench press? Well, remember, the job of the legs is to provide stability for the bench, for the movement. It's clearly not contributing to the actual vertical movement of the bar. So what are the legs doing? They're contributing to stability in the same way that your lifting shoes provide stability, that a stable lifting surface provides stability, right? All those things provide for more efficient force transfer between you and the bar. The bar, for crying out loud, it's rigid, right? It's better for force transfer. It's better for force transmission. Your legs are responsible for the same thing. So for starters, let's talk about the lateral stability that the legs provide, right? The bench and the length of your body provides pretty good, front to back stability, let's just call it. But your legs provide, your feet specifically provide lateral stability. So when you're taking your stance, don't just take it lackadaisically, right? Don't just like sit down and then go ahead and lay back down on the bench press. You want to take a stance that is, roughly speaking, about squat width in terms of where you're going to place your feet, and you can go a little bit wider than that. But when you're benching, let's start off by giving yourself some lateral stability because the bench itself is not very wide. So give yourself some side-to-side stability by taking a stance that is sufficiently wide enough. Going along with this, the second factor that you want to consider is what are the legs actually doing, right? We're not just taking this stance and then laying down like a floppy, dead fish as we're laying down here on the bench. The legs actually have a job to do. So when you've unracked your bar, and now you've got a whole bunch of weight here sitting on the bar, the job of the legs, you don't want to just be laying here like this. You actually want to be driving up the bench so that you are compressing yourself as much as possible. Now, how do you do that specifically with your feet? You can't drive your legs directly down into the ground. If you do that, if you drive your legs directly down into the ground, you're holding onto that bar, you're going to tend to bridge your hips up off of the bench. That's no good. The moment your butt leaves the bench, the rep no longer counts. So you can't drive straight down. You also can't drive straight forward across, you can't drive straight forward because your feet are just going to slip in that case, right? So you kind of got to think about driving your feet diagonally down into the floor. This is true if you've ever tried to push against something that's stuck, you're trying to slide something heavy across the floor or something like that. You obviously don't drive your legs straight down because you're trying to push something forward. You also can't drive your legs straight back unless you somehow have like a wall behind you that you can wedge yourself up against, Star Wars style, right? So you've got to drive your feet diagonally into the floor. This is the same thing here. Doing that helps make you more rigid, right? Because we as humans are generally squishy. We are soft. How do we make ourselves rigid? Because in this case, our whole body is in effect the lifting shoe. It's the thing. It is the interface between the thing that's moving, the bar in your arms, and the support surface. In this case, the bench. In the squat, the interface would be between you. Your whole body is moving during the squat and the floor, right? So that interface is your lifting shoe. Well, in this case, you, from your shoulders on down, you are the lifting shoe. You want to make sure that that is as rigid, as stable as possible. So now we've given it some lateral stability, we've given it some compression to make you as rigid as you can be. Now, in reality, of course, if you're driving hard, you're driving effectively with your legs. And by the way, you do this throughout the whole set. The moment you unrack the bar, you are already driving with your legs before that. But before you start your first rep, you are driving with your legs. You're driving your body up the bench in a manner of speaking. You are driving up the bench on the descent, during the ascent as well. So it's never turned off. You think about driving your legs as hard as you can during the descent, and even harder if that were possible, which it shouldn't be. But nonetheless, you try to drive it even harder during the ascent. A lot of times people will make the mistake of only using the legs on the ascent. Therefore, you are soft and squishy on the descent, which you do not want. But if you're using your legs effectively and you're using an empty bar, which we no longer have anymore, you actually would probably slide up the bench, which you don't want. So during your warm-ups, you've kind of got to match the amount of leg drive to the weight that's on the bar. But now that you actually got some weight on the bar, you can drive harder with your legs. So what does it look like using your legs effectively versus not using your legs effectively? All right, so now I'm just laying here on the bench. I'm just kind of a soft, squishy mess of a human, and now I'm actually driving hard with my legs, and I'm not sliding up the bench. So again, just kind of relax and driving hard with the legs. It supports your arch, it makes you more rigid, and I'm not sliding up the bench because the weight is pinning my shoulders to the bench. So make sure you're driving with your legs the entire time, and the heavier that weight gets, the more you will be able to actually drive with your legs. Now, of course, you should actually have, by the way, if you're benching on your own, you should actually have safeties. They're out of the way right now just for demonstration purposes. Thing number two, remember we're going to talk about some equipment issues that it can inhibit your ability to use your legs effectively. So number one in equipment issues is the presence of a slick surface. In other words, your feet have the potential to slide across the floor, or maybe the surface actually isn't that bad, but you just got slick shoes. So what are you going to do? What you're going to do is you're going to get yourself some rosin blend. We'll link to this below. They've got some other stuff out there like this. There's probably a whole bunch of options you can get. This is just what we have. It's the Mueller brand, very common, sport fitness brand. But what this basically is, it's magnesium carbonate and rock rosin. That's what it is, magnesium carbonate and rock rosin. So basically you're looking at, in essence, kind of chalk mixed with, hardened tree sap. So this is essence of rosin, all right? So it's very effective, and here's how you use it. I don't know how well this will show up on camera. The point is not to get it on the floor. That's key. You have to get it on the floor to accomplish it, but the point is not where you do this on the floor. The point is to get it on your shoes. So you do not need much. You put a little bit on the floor. We'll see how well this shows up, and I'm not going to move the camera. And then what you're going to do is you're going to stab your feet down into it several times until everything that you put on the floor is no longer there. You should not be able to see it anymore. Now maybe you could see it from an angle, but at least from my position you would not be able to see it anymore. So I'm doing this over and over again. We'll see how well this shows up on camera. And then a good test is step on something black. For example, we have horse stall mats, and see if you're leaving footprints. I'm not leaving a footprint that tells you I've effectively got it on my shoes. This is what I want. And now I've got very grippy shoes. These shoes are pretty decently grippy before, but if you had, a slick surface, or you had shoes that didn't have a whole lot of grip, this stuff will help tremendously. This is also useful for this. They'll have stuff like this, like at weightlifting meets, for a snatch, for a clean and jerk, something where your feet actually move and you need solid grip between your feet and the floor. So that's one equipment issue that you may have, and this is how you solve for that issue. Equipment issue number two is, what if the surface that you're laying on is actually slick? If this is slick, remember this bar is going to be anchoring you, it's going to be pinning you to the bench. But if this surface is slick, or you were silly and you wore a tank top to bench in, or you wore something that's slick, right? Like that tech type of material, that type of moisture wicking fabric, great for running, for soccer, for basketball, all that stuff. It's great for what it says it's supposed to be good for, which is wicking sweat away from you, but it tends to be on the slick side. So your best friend when benching, when squatting, when doing cleans, anything where you need friction between you and the bar, in the case of a squat or a front squat or a clean or something like that, or between you and the bench, in the case of obviously here, the bench press, cotton is your best friend. But if you made a mistake and you don't have that and you find yourself sliding, what you can do is get yourself a non-stick rug pad. We'll link to this below. By the way, both of these items are really cheap. This is like somewhere between 10 and 12 bucks. I just looked at this yesterday. I think it was like $12.99 or something like that. So these are equipment issues, not gonna break the bank here. What you do is you get yourself a rug pad. You don't even need one this long. It doesn't technically need to be the length of the bench. If it is the length of the bench, that's great. But really specifically, you need it up here by your shoulders. If it drapes off to the side, that's fine. If it's too wide, but you're just gonna have, you can set it up like this if you want to. You can set it up like this. The point is you need to have it underneath your shoulders. This will be here so that when you lay down to bench, remember this is the same thing that keeps your rug, your runners from sliding up and down the hallway and stuff like that. So now this will provide a lot of friction between you and the bench so that when you're driving hard diagonally with your feet, you're not accidentally sliding up the bench. Hope this helps you get stronger and live better.